Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for yet another Chelsea preview in the Premier League after everyone else has played already. I saw a stat today. This is a fifth Monday night game. Is that true? It's mental. 5 times. Why do we keep playing Monday night? I don't know. But hey, at least we could enjoy games like Liverpool against Man City before getting depressed by Chelsea on this respective weekend. So I guess that's a positive. Obviously, it's been a couple of days since I was last had the time to stream. So a fair few bits and pieces of news that we need to discuss, including obviously Thomas Tuchel on the thumbnail. I am sure you guys heard about it, thought about it, spoke about it, but we're just going to give it a little bit of a revive a couple of days later because I was a little bit surprised by it when it came out. Of course, Nico Williams, Chelsea's supposed interest in him. We'll discuss that, as well as, of course, Newcastle tomorrow. With a lot of injuries, is Lewis Hall staying there? Is he coming back to Chelsea? Who knows? We will discuss. Pice, I'll start with you. First of all, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it as always. First of all, Monday night games. How do you feel about Monday night games? It's a bit of a weird start, but how do you feel about Monday night games?
I hate them, to be honest. But to be fair, because we've been so shit, I mean, waiting a couple of extra days isn't the worst thing in the world. But I'm weirdly looking forward to watch this a little bit tomorrow. But I know I'll probably get let down. I mean, Newcastle are terrible away, so if we do drop points, it's going to be really, really bad. We've got 2 games in hand, I think, against Burnley and Newcastle, so we need to take advantage of these because Brighton are 6 points ahead, West Ham 6 points ahead now. And yeah, we really need to try and push up the table, but you just don't know what you're going to get with Chelsea. I mean, all the fan base still against Pochettino, me included. I don't, obviously I understand that. I don't really think we shouldn't be, to be fair, but I think tomorrow is going to be an interesting game. The Newcastle obviously a good team. Got a lot of dangerous attacking threats, and we'll see how we do because we've had quite a long rest. So there should be no excuses for lack of energy or lack of performance. Obviously, Conor Gallagher might be out. Don't know if he's back in training. Colwill is out, and obviously Chilwell is now injured. So we've got a few injuries, but again, no excuses. We've got more than enough a good team to beat Newcastle tomorrow night, especially with our rest and their away form. So if it was if we was playing them at St James's, then yeah, I'd say we've 100% lost. But
just think about when we did play them at St James's.
We already got battered there this season, so that's out the way. And now let's we actually try and win at home and not draw or lose. That'd be nice.
I mean, we can try. Not sure how likely it is to happen, but we can try. But yeah, no, it's. I agree. You've touched on you're still Pochettino out. I am also still Pochettino out. For me, I've come to the point now where I think it's better if we don't sack him before the season ends, unless we get the next permanent manager in mid-season already. If we're going to only get a new manager in the summer, then keep Pochettino until the end, in my opinion. Because we learned last year that doesn't, obviously it could go slightly differently, but even with Lampard, we won 1 in 10 games. I think that may just be league. Is it all comps? I don't know. Whatever it is, it was terrible. We all know it was terrible. So let's not do something like that again with some interim, drama. Why? Just leave it as it is, I guess. But and that makes it even more difficult for me to get into it, to be buzzing for tomorrow's game, to be looking forward to it. Because part of me, obviously, I want us to turn it around. I want us to all of a sudden be amazing again. But it just doesn't feel like that's going to happen. But I don't want to go into games thinking, hopefully we lose, so Pochettino gets sacked. First of all, won't happen. Second of all, I don't think like that. I want to think like that. But it's just difficult because, let's be honest, all of us, surely no one actually still believes Pochettino will still be here going into next season. So, and then I'm thinking, okay, if that's me, the players, now footballers have the stereotype to be a bit silly, but they're not all stupid. Let's be real. So they understand what's happening as well. They're probably aware, most likely, Pochettino ain't going to be here next season. So how is their effort going to be? Both in training, both when listening in tactics rooms. Obviously, it should be there. But how many times have we learned from this Chelsea team that those are exactly the things that they don't turn up with, right? That they don't do to the extent that they should do it. So, Naishi, first of all, I want to start with the same question as I posed to Pice about Monday night games. But then I do want to lead that into whether you think the situation, regardless of whether we change the manager or not, we're already in this situation outside of when we maybe play FA Cup, that we're the players also, well, there's nothing left to play for. I know Europe is kind of there, but it's just been so miserable for so long that it's like, is that also part of why we're so bad? The longer the season goes on, and we start off badly, and then we fall down to the same kind of downward spiral that we fell into last year. You play okay, but you don't win your games, and then you lose more and more games, and you lose more and more touch to the top four, and eventually it's just so bad that it's difficult to ever get yourself out of it, both the motivation and the effort and everything else. But yeah, please start with Monday Night Football. What do you think of that? And also, like I said, how do you think it will go with Pochettino? Because now we kind of have to accept it's going to be here until the summer. I don't think anyone really expects anything to happen beforehand anymore.
Yeah, just on the Monday Night Football game, I think I do have hope that we can win that game, and I think we have a very good chance of winning that game because we've had a long rest, and I feel like Newcastle are not the same Newcastle at the start of the season, and I believe it's at home as well, so that's good. And obviously, touching on that, we're kind of in limbo, really, where the season, there's nothing to really play for, if I'm being honest. I'm not really going into games as excited as I was at the beginning of the season, but it is
what we'd like to be, right? I'm sure we'd all like to be more excited going into all the games, right?
Exactly. But yeah, it's going to be a long haul. But yeah, in terms of the game, we have a few injuries with Levi Colwill. Also, I think
Chilwell.
it's as well, which Nkunku. I don't know what's happening with Chukwuemeka as well. I didn't know he got injured.
All out. If you're talking about it, I might as well bring up the injury report, which weirdly came out on Thursday, which is, like, as you can see, that was the 7th of March. Today is 10th of March, Sunday, and we only play tomorrow on the 11th of March. Why do we release an injury report for a game on the 11th of March on the 7th of March? What's the point in that? Anyway, Chukwuemeka, well, he is supposedly to join team training because this came out Thursday. Might have happened. I don't know. But Badiashile is obviously still on there, partial team training for reconditioning, still going to be out a while. But then the big ones, Ben Chilwell, Levi Colwill. Ben Chilwell has some sort of knee issue. Is, as you can also see on screen, I think, undergoing specialist medical assessment. Why? Like, why? That's the only word that comes to mind anymore. Why is this happening to us? Why? Like, honestly, Ben Chilwell is now not really in the same realm of injury prone as Reece James is. It's not even less bad, which makes the whole our pair of captain and vice captain is even more ridiculous. Like, imagine you give two players the captaincy and vice captaincy who are basically never fit. Now, you can obviously argue they didn't know that beforehand, but my God, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Levi Colwill is out, God knows how long. Poch said a weird thing in part of the press conference where it's got to be a few weeks, but it wasn't really a clear thing. He just kind of said it on the fly. Could it have been a language barrier thing, and he didn't exactly mean what he said? Conor Gallagher, not back fit, or is he back from his illness or not? Who knows? But then obviously the usual Fofana, James, Lavia, and Kunku. And Ugo Chukwu. Neshi, I know I interrupted you, but I thought if we're going to discuss injuries, let's quickly go through them properly, and then I'll bring you back into it. So with the injuries and also with the rest of the limbo, what else did you want to say? Sorry, to bring it back to your point.
No, that's fine. As I said, I think we have a good chance of winning that game, to be honest. And it's a case of whether we can get European football, whether that's from 6th or maybe 7th. I think that's a possibility. And I
think in theory could even go down to 8th if things go the right way. I think Pies or Nation, please correct me, or the chat, please correct me if I am wrong. But as far as I know, it's still up in the air whether the Premier League gets the 5th automatic Champions League starting spot. If that happens, or the other European spots drop down one, so then Europa League is 5th and 6th, and then Conference League is 7th, and then it depends on the cup winner whether the other conference spot is also is maybe 8th or whatever. I think it's 8th if the 5th Champions League place comes to England. I'm not even sure, but that's what Pi said. Pi said it to us earlier, didn't he? Well, 6 points of these guys in those positions. Obviously, we're 11 points behind Man United in 6th, but 7th, in theory, would still be possible. So you think there is something to fight for. But how long has that been the case where 7th has been possible and they've still never turned up? So why would it change all of a sudden? I mean,
exactly, yeah, exactly. And as I said, and I believe with the FA Cup win, there's European football that comes along.
Even Europa League actually, and Carabao Cup would have been Conference League.
So that's definitely something that I think the FA Cup is something we should prioritize, and so that's probably our focus. But looking on the game, I do think we can win that game.
I do think we can win it as well. That's the problem. Other than if we play a certain few teams, I always think we can win. It's just always a case of whether we do or not. Pies, we've been discussing injuries now. You've touched on them as well when you were speaking. I mean, I don't know for how many time I'm asking you this question this season. I'm not sure how many times already I've had titles and thumbnails with another injury crisis and an injury crisis again. Injury crisis 3.0. Like, how much worse can it get? Now, I understand, obviously, Thiago Silva is back fit, so you do have some people available. Chalobah is also there, so you have some players. But what are we going to do about left back? Obviously, we're going to get into our predicted 11 later, but just to talk about it as we discuss injuries, Chile out again, Colwill out again, 2 left back options, as much as none of us want Colwill at left back, still used there plenty of times this season. So, and then every time I think about the fact that we have no left backs, I think about Ian Maatsen, who's just absolutely killing it at Dortmund. Scored his first goal recently. They absolutely love him over there. I think one young player of the month or whatever it was. Crazy stuff. But by thoughts on injuries, in particular, obviously the new 2 injuries, like, what can you even say?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously terrible. I don't really know what to say anymore. You know, I have to honestly question Pochettino's training methods. I do think that has to be some part of it, knowing his history. With Spurs and Southampton, the exact same things happened. And also, if you think back to last season, Pochettino obviously, or not Pochettino, Lampard obviously put them through their paces. He said that the players weren't fit enough. And I know we got, a lot of different players now, but there's still quite a few players from that squad that have come over here. And I think maybe they've just, because Pochettino is known to be so intense and put them through their paces so often, it's like their muscles just aren't coping with it. And I think we've had, a lot of hamstring injuries this season. And it's just...
But then again, you see the Chile one is apparently a knee injury. So
yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be contact or whatever, but we don't. The problem is as well is we just get lists. We just say, "Oh, knee injury, oh, hamstring." Like we don't know anything about how these things happen. This will probably come out later on. When Pochettino leaves, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, it's just transparency is not there, and it leads to fans sort of questioning what is the cause of it. Unless they're going to come out and tell us, this is how these injuries happened, like add them onto the injury list, this is how it happened, then obviously everyone's going to keep speculating as to why, or who is the cause or what is the cause, Again, the owners, got rid of a lot of the medical department, brought new ones in, and they seemingly don't do anything either. You know what I mean? Like you hear of these medical appointments 2, 3, 4 months ago, and you never hear of these guys again. You never hear of anything positive. You just hear of more injuries. So none of the guys that have come in have changed anything at all. So again, another fantastic decision or decisions made by the ownership, you have to say. Another thing that's worked. Well done, guys. So yeah, I'm fuming, to be honest, because, as much as I hate Pochettino, when you have Colwill and Chilwell injured now, and if Cucurella is not fit to start, who the hell is going to play left back? Are you going to put Gusto there and have to play Alfie Gilchrist against Anthony Gordon tomorrow night?
Or remember the Leeds game when he played Gilchrist at left back and kept Gusto right back?
I was just going to say, I will give sympathy for Poch until I see what is on the pitch, where he puts people, because it defies logic sometimes what he does, even when we do have injuries, to be fair.
Yeah. It absolutely does. I mean, it's a tricky one. There's another thing you touched on earlier, Pies, that I wanted to kind of cling on to as a point of discussion was you touched on the rest, right? Obviously, it's by the time we play tomorrow night, it will have been 9 games since our last game. I can't remember who the last game was. Oh, Brentford. The game I only watched on the side. So in my head, it feels like even longer ago since I last properly got to watch a game. But the thing is, when we speak about, we had a lot of rest now, compared to that, when we don't have so much rest, when we have a lot of games in succession, our manager keeps speaking about, they had more rest than us, and we have so many games, especially Enzo and Caicedo, we have no one to play instead of them. Chooses to not play Casadei permanently. Could have, made the point to, why don't we keep Andre Santos? Because Ugochukwu and Lavia out, so let's not send him on loan, just use him. Just as a shout. I'm sure if he said that, the directors above him would have said, no, that's a terrible idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, just thinking, right? That's all you had to do. Just think. But it's weird when we have more games preparation, like we do for tomorrow, as we also did for the Carabao Cup final. Funnily enough, he never loses a word about it. I hate this about managers, how they keep talking about recovery time when their team has less. But when the other team has less, they never mention a word of it. Like, never. Whether we play good or bad, they never think, in hindsight, if we battered someone, they're like, yeah, well, we had the advantage of more rest. No, it's only ever when we lose. And I get it. And, us fans are the same. But in a way, it's like, just stop talking about bloody recovery time. Clearly doesn't matter to us anyway. The longer we have between games, the more injuries we flipping get. Look at Chilwell and Colwill. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a bloody mess. It's a bloody mess. I mean, you touched on it there, Pice, with the left back. We'll get to that once we get to the lineup. I do want to get through a few pieces of news that have come out this past week. And the first one I do want to and have to start with is that, according to Sportbild in Germany, who are quite reliable over there, have said that if the Chelsea owners were willing to swallow their pride, aka apologise, Thomas Tuchel would consider a return to Chelsea. Todd Bowley believes that the club was significantly better positioned with Tuchel in charge. And that last sentence also gives you an indication about who the real issue is of this not happening. Now, even if Eghbali wasn't the egomaniac that he seems to be, even then, the likelihood of this happening is essentially zero. But I will say this just quickly, and everyone can have their own take on this. I do, under no circumstances whatsoever, expect Thomas Tuchel to actually come back. Because there is no way under which the owners, in particular Eghbali, apologize or make up for whatever you want to say. But the fact that he, at least reportedly, would be willing to come back despite of how he's been treated, in my estimations, in my kind of internal list of likeness and whatever love for ex-managers, significantly gone up. Because if I was him, I would be telling us to fuck right off. And not, if you apologize, I'd be coming back. I mean, maybe this is why Tuchel has so many issues with people, because he lets them apologize way too much. But, from our perspective, it's nice. But I'll start with you, Pice. We can unfortunately kill the buzz very quickly. I know, obviously, this is from a couple of days ago, and we're just talking about it late. This is obviously not going to happen. But what did you think when you read it regardless, mate?
I think it's probably true, to be fair, just in terms of like he would probably come back, because, even when he was, he's obviously Bayern manager, he got interviewed and said he feels more appreciated in England, which is kind of crazy considering, he's German and obviously has been, was it Mainz manager and then Dortmund, I think? Was it Mainz?
It's just the German media. I don't think it's necessarily a case of the fan bases. Maybe that too. But I think mostly he meant within the media, because in Germany, they just don't like him. They just beef him every time he says something. They just beef him in the media. It's crazy.
I mean, he's probably watched some of our Champions League comps like I've been doing all season to make me feel a bit better. But obviously this is not going to happen. Eghbali's not changing the model when he's not apologising. The egos upstairs are way too big for this to happen. And you can obviously have your debates after that, whether, he's a good fit with his squad or anything. But it's not going to happen. It would be great if they put it as a possibility and like sort of opened up to it. I think that would be great, because I think the fan base would probably think, okay, like obviously the ownership have got it wrong. Like they're understanding that, the manager we had before, all the pile of shit they've appointed was, significantly better. It shows their, their willingness and for me, their eagerness to actually win. I can't say at the moment, people say, oh, well, they spent 1 billion. Well, okay, but did we spend 1 billion or 500 million or even 300 million on proven players? No, we didn't. We spent £1 billion on players, roughly pretty much, that are going to try to compete and win things in 5-6 years. They, ideally, obviously everyone wants to win now, and it'd be great if we did, but it's highly unlikely. And, even when last season, Todd Bowley did that like presser in America, some business presser, he got answered on Chelsea. And what was his thoughts about the season? He was like, well, we came into this with a long-term vision. It's like, we've said this, the fans have said this, like they're going to clash. The fan base and these ownership are going to clash. And this shit form cannot continue much longer. If Pochettino goes and they get the next manager wrong, I don't know what the hell is going to happen, especially because they're going to up season ticket prices as well. So, there's a lot of discontent between the ownership, the fan base and the ownership. The ownership think they're doing everything right, clearly, because otherwise,
I
they
see
would.
fanzine have put out a rumor. I'm not sure how reliable their information is, obviously, but that season ticket prices might be going up by up to 20%. Like, I know, obviously, they had been frozen for a long time now, but with the cost of living crisis in the UK and globally, you cannot be doing that to your supporters. Like, that's ridiculous. 20% in one go. This is madness.
Yeah.
Imagine your can of milk or whatever bloody bottle of milk in the UK because you sell things in plastic for some weird reason. Imagine that going up by 20% just from one day to another. It's mental. It's ridiculous. We'll get into ownership chat in a second again after. Paisa, do you want to elaborate even more on the Tuchel stuff, or shall I go to Nashi?
I was just going to say, my season ticket, if that's true, would be like £900 or something like that. It goes
instead
up.
Of what, 750?
So yeah, like 700 or something like that. It's crazy.
Crazy.
It's mental. If they do that, they can't keep Pochettino. Like they just can't. Like if you keep Pochettino and you up season ticket prices,
mate, imagine. I mean, the Serbian for the match goers, right? If they get the Serbian, as much as there may be positives about the Serbian as well, if they get the Serbian for another Brighton thing, I reckon we're not even going to sell every season ticket.
Mate, it's crazy. Or people that just won't support, unfortunately, will buy them. It's really sad. It really is. The atmosphere at the ground hasn't been great for a long time. We all know this.
Absolutely. And actually, I'll come to you now. I'm sure, just as me and Paisa, just as pretty much everybody in the chat has, I'm sure you've seen these reports a couple of days ago that Thomas Tuchel would come back. Now, obviously, it sent the fan base into frenzy on Twitter. Everyone's talking about, would you have Tuchel back? Why would you have Tuchel back? And obviously, the few special specimens that have to be smart, I was like, no, don't bring Tuchel back. Don't you remember how bad he was? Fucking have you paid attention to what's happened in the last 2 years, you dickheads? Do you know what I mean? And look at all the other managers we've got in flipping contention. Another Brighton guy, so the fan base will hate that, obviously, from top to bottom. Who was the other guy? Bloody Amorim, who the fans will also hate because he's not been in the Premier League, because apparently only Premier League proven works, but only Premier League proven if you've also won, which, because Alex Ferguson exists, means there is about 5 managers available to you. One is at Man City, one is at Liverpool and retiring, or whatever he calls it, and the other one's we flipping at. So you're not going to flipping get them, are you? So compared to our actual options, they'll still be miles better, even if obviously he had some issues. But Nashi, what was your reaction to when you saw this? And would you even want to hold back, despite obviously, like me and Pies touched on, the likelihood of that happening being essentially 0%?
Yeah, the likelihood of that happening is, as soon as I seen the reports, obviously I was very much excited, and that's something I think I'll be accustomed to, really. But it's not. And these owners they've got so much money, they've got ego. They wouldn't really put their pride aside and make that happen. And I don't see it ever happening, to be honest. Once they've made that decision, it won't make sense to go back, really. It'll be almost contradicting their own judgment from sacking him in the first place. So I feel like
absolutely. But I think doing that would be one of the only things other than winning, and winning is so far away for us right now, that this would, in theory, and again, I think we all know this won't happen, but it would literally be the only thing that they could do. They could actually maybe bring the fans back around on their side, because as much as I agree with you, it would make them look stupid. It would make their whole plan look even more ridiculous. But it would make it at least seem like they learn from mistakes and they acknowledge that they got it wrong and try to rectify that. So purely from that perspective, I think the fans would get more on side with the ownership with this than with any other managerial appointment that we could literally make, other than maybe Pep. Do you know what I mean? Do you get that point, or do you not see that like that?
No, I definitely do get that point. Like myself, I think all 3 of us, we like Tuchel. What I loved about Tuchel, whenever we lost a game, he would have a proper assessment of the game. You know what I mean? You could see that he's really looked at the game and he's seen the weaknesses and what kind of made mistakes. Whereas Pochettino, he doesn't have a clue what's going on. He literally just every press conference, every presser, he's literally defending his own position. There's no kind of tactical analysis of the game on why we got losing the game. So, and also with Tuchel, he was with us during that difficult period when Abramovich was had to put the club off for sale, and that really, I feel like a lot of the Chelsea fans it really brought close to Tuchel and how I think the presser when he mentioned about even if we just have the bus, I'll still manage Chelsea or something along those lines.
Yeah, I'll drive us to Lille, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he was a great manager, and like I said, I really liked him. But in terms of if it will work, in the sense of I don't think it would actually work, to be honest. In terms of like, I don't think the squad suits Tuchel, and I don't think he's a manager for these kind of players or young players as when he first came in. That's the kind of profile he was looking for, the experience profile. That's why they probably brought in Aubameyang and a lot of the players they bring in. So it's a case of, one, I don't see it happening. Two, I don't think the profile of players would work anyway, and it wouldn't really be a success. But three, I do agree with your point that it's maybe a very good PR stunt, but it can only last so long if the goes going our way.
You know what my concern or point with that is almost that I hear that absolutely, and I agree with it, that I don't think it would work particularly well, and that Tuchel would have a lot of demands to change the squad, because obviously the way it is, it's not exactly for him. But also, not just not for him, not for anyone. No one will do well with a squad full of 12-year-olds plus Thiago Silva. No one will, and I don't care what anyone says. Like, in terms of profiling, maybe it suits someone like De Zerbi a bit better, sure. But is that because we built a mid-table team, or because De Zerbi is great and suits our great players? You know, make of it what you will. Like, I just think it doesn't matter who we bring in. We're not going to get higher than sixth. Doesn't matter who the manager is, because the way the football club is run, it will never happen for another 3 or 4 years, at least for me. That we scrape even top four. But hey,
I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of De Zerbi. I don't know about you guys.
I mean, in general, I like De Zerbi's approach, but it's just, you know, I just spoke about PR with Tuchel. I just think what this club needs is to get a bit of unity. And often a problem with clubs that are in a bit of free fall, falling from the top, right? And Arsenal, to some extent, experienced this as well, obviously, through slowly initially when Wenger was still there, and then quite dramatically once he did leave, or even Man United to some extent. That when you're used to success, it's very difficult to unite the fan base unless you get back to success. So, because you're so used to it, you almost need to experience a long time without the success, so you're not purely basing your support and your happiness supporting your team on results. I think it's also a normal thing. But what the club really needs is some unity. And if once there is some unity, then everything else can work. Because I think the way it is right now, if you appoint De Zerbi, it's such a bad starting spot, even if he's a great manager, with how toxic the 90%, in my opinion, of the match-going fans will take this appointment purely from the perspective he's another Brighton guy. I think that just makes it so difficult to work, that no matter how great he is, I just don't think the club is in a position to allow that to work. If that makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm making sense in trying to explain that. But I mean, Ray says club unity for what? No, I totally agree. For what? But as in, just, you know, the fans supporting what's happening, whether that's being 10th and you try to work your way back up to being at the top, or whether that's being at the top and trying to stay at the top. You just need the fans to support. And because otherwise it just doesn't work. Like us three, we were talking about it just before we went live, how in the second half, this Liverpool City game, Anfield literally made City incapable of playing football. Like, they couldn't keep the ball anymore. And if people think that's nothing, like, look at who City are. Look at their players. Look at their manager. And still, they couldn't string more than 2 passes together. Like, this, and a stadium like that can create it. And I'm not saying Stamford Bridge can do the same or can't do the same, but it's just a small sign, in my opinion, that when there is support, worse players, worse managers could do better things. It just doesn't work when the fans don't want the manager. Like, I know we were Rafa, we won the Europa League, but it's just a bad vibe like the whole time when the fans don't like the manager. This is the problem right now. As I think it unfortunately will be the problem with the Serbi. If the Serbi goes elsewhere first, and then we get him in 3 years, different scenario. But if we go back to Brighton, I just think it creates so much more toxicity that I don't know. Pice, you and me, we sat here with Connor talking about Amorim and the Serbi a couple of days ago, and I wasn't quite that clear in that thought of mine then. But thinking about it more, do you agree with what I've said there in terms of, because the fans will be so against the Serbi as most of the match goers? I'm not saying everyone on Twitter and stuff, but I feel like the match goers will just simplified mostly to, we've got the Brighton guy. And even if they don't from the get-go, the second he loses his first game, they will. And I just don't think that there is ever any hope that works long term, because we will never give them the chance to fix Chelsea enough, because we're so far away from the top. We're not going to give them the Serbi the time to take us there, because it won't be an easy ride. Do you know what I mean?
With De Zerbi specifically, I don't agree, to be fair. I think for starters, he's way more charismatic than Pochettino. Number two, he isn't Pochettino, so I think anyone that comes in after Pochettino is like, okay, you're an instant sort of, like, I just think they'll have that more of a, I don't know.
I've literally seen people tweet, and people that I know go to games, they're like, if they're going to bring in De Zerbi, they'd rather they'd keep Pochettino. Like, I've seen people say that. Again, this is a few people that I've seen, not loads. And I'm not saying that's the majority of anything. But I'm just trying to say those people seemingly at least exist. And if there's even a few, that makes me think there's got to be a few more.
Well, let's... I kind of see, obviously the narrative of going back to Brighton and stuff like that, if it did happen. But at the end of the day, like, depends where we finish this season as well. Like, if we finish, 11th or 10th or whatever, or just anywhere like that, it's hard to get worse. Unfortunately, we said that last year about Graham Potter, but I do think De Zerbi's a better manager than all three we've hired so far. Unfortunately, is the case in my opinion. So I do think he'll do a lot better. And I know you said, like, well, top six is the maximum. Top six, that's where we really need to try and get with this competitive league at the moment. We need to try and get that to obviously make a building block and actually start, what it should be a process really. But we haven't got started yet because the managers haven't worked, and there's question marks about our squad's sort of ability to be ready immediately. But I do believe in the squad. I really do. I think we'll get a striker in the summer, and I think things will look more positive if we get the right manager next. And even if it's not the be all and end all, I still think we'd definitely look to make strides next season. So yeah, I don't know if the fans would be that toxic towards someone like De Zerbi, because it's taken us 25, 30 games to really hear the fans sing against Pochettino. We all thought, well, Pochettino has a bad first 10 games.
But there's a difference between it being against the manager and it being for the manager, because it's never been for Poch. There's never been support for Poch since day one. He hasn't got there. And now it's just got so bad that not only are they not supporting, they're singing against him. But there's a middle ground, though. And that middle ground is a big middle ground. And I just think, and then another part of it is just like us fans. Like, we are arguably more frustrated this season than last season, even though last season, in terms of goals scored and points, was worse. But because it's a second season of this level of bad for us, we in our minds, the way we feel it as a fan is worse. And that's in the same way, I think, if they get another manager they don't like after Potter, I just think it will also amplify that negativity and toxicity from the fans. Now, it's fair enough if you disagree. I just think if I'm experiencing that, I feel like this season is worse than last season, even though it is actually better. Then I'm thinking, okay, if they get us another manager. Now, imagine after Benitez, they gave us Wenger. And after Wenger, they gave us Poch. Imagine those, like, that's and okay, this
different era back then, bro. Like, it's different eras, different times. I think a lot of fans.
It wasn't the best example, I would admit.
Well, a lot of fans, I think, are sort of just sitting back now and understanding our position in terms of the young squad. And I actually think if they get another manager wrong next season, assuming Poch goes, because I don't fully agree yet that it's guaranteed he leaves. But if they do get another manager, and he fails, then I think the fans will start looking more towards the ownership, to be honest with you. That's what I hope anyway, because you can't really, sit back. I mean, maybe we do just hire another shit manager, but then again, has to go towards the ownership, right? Can't just be the manager all the time. But considering the reaction,
it shouldn't.
Considering the reaction I thought Pochettino would get, considering our position, it's been nowhere near as bad. So that's why when, if it's someone not from ex-Spurs or whatever, I think he'll be all right, because I do think we'll do better as well, depending on who it is, obviously.
Okay. I mean, if it is De Zerbi, if we do end up getting him, I do hope you're right, obviously.
Like, can you imagine if like Pochettino we had this season under the old regime, like the supporters would, like, I feel like the supporters are sort of like obviously no one really likes Poch, but it's not like, like he's, you know what I mean? I think people are understanding of the position we're in terms of the squad, and I just think a lot of people are like going at the players more than the manager as well, which
I think is the worst, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's the worst, but I feel like that's what fans are gravitated towards, and unfortunately, when you're right there when talking about the match goers and the players are making mistakes, it's them first and foremost, and then it's the manager. If he doesn't make subs, people get irritated and stuff like that. But imagine we had Pochettino under the old ownership, and this was happening. Fans would have had him out after a month. It's just like we're near the end of the season. We've got like 2 or 3 months left, and we've only just sort of heard chants of swearing against him. I mean, it's kind of crazy, to be honest, how like little he's got bashed.
It is, to be honest. And to be honest, if we didn't, like, for example, that Newcastle penalty win in the cup doesn't happen, I think we entered where we are already now a month and a half earlier. Because obviously getting to a cup semi-final, winning a cup quarterfinals on penalties, getting to a semi-final, then making the final. And even though obviously a lot of us were fuming, including at Poch, we still took it to extra time. Like, we weren't like battered. That certainly extended things drastically. Imagine Mudryk doesn't score that equalizer against Newcastle. I think the turn against Poch happens way earlier. But I want to give a little shout out to the Strasbourg Ultras. Obviously it's from a couple of days ago. I'll read it out to you. The RC Strasbourg group Ultra 19 have called for a march against Bluco against Rennes at the end of the month. They have called out Benedict Barley and Mark Kelleher, specifically Mark Kelleher being their sport director, essentially, telling them to change the under 23 player policy or leave the club. Ultra 90 are demanding an immediate change in sporting strategy, with worries over the amount of inexperienced players signed and the amount of experienced players Bluco have let go. Now, obviously, will this do much? Probably not. But Ultras don't usually give up early. Like, I guarantee every single person in this Ultra group will be there supporting Strasbourg long after Bluco are still part of Strasbourg. So they won't give up with this. But what I don't know about is, for example, what are Troyes, the other club in France that are under the Man City group. I wonder what they think about or how they have reacted. But yeah, I think shout at them. Will something like this happen at Chelsea? Obviously not, because ultra groups, that's not really a thing like that in England. Like, you don't have to do a full like protest like for the Ricketts or whatever. But if there was like a main supporters group that can direct the club and be a part of it, because obviously in Europe it just works a bit differently. But yeah, I just wanted to say shout out to them. That's all. Neshi, obviously on this, if you want to touch on this one, but also in general, if you want to get more into obviously the De Zerbi discussion after what Pai said, you can obviously do that as well, because it is about that, the owners, right? Some people in the chat 10 minutes ago were already saying Bluco out and stuff, because that's essentially the be all and end all, isn't it? That's it for me in terms of when I say I don't think it will work that well with any manager, not necessarily permanently, but until the structure changes. Like, obviously Pies touched on, we could buy this player or that player in the summer, but essentially we will lose even more experience. Thiago Silva will leave, maybe Sterling will leave. We'll get into that. So we'll be even less experienced. Why is anyone thinking next season will be better? I know we have better play, like the players will grow together a little bit and they're all getting a bit older, but we're still losing drastic amounts of experience and we're not gaining any. So it's crazy. But yeah, thoughts on the Strasbourg stuff, and then obviously on what me and Pies discussed.
Yeah, on the Strasbourg stuff, kind of highlight kind of struggles this ownership have in terms of managing clubs, and I really hate this like multi-club system. I really feel like if you're gonna invest in a club, just invest all your efforts into one club. It's almost like a business model more than just investing in one club and making them successful again. Because I know Man City is probably a good example that it can work because they're dominating Europe as well.
But that's it. That's essentially my question. Like in terms of now focusing on Strasbourg, how do their feeder clubs feel? Obviously, Girona, I'm sure, will be buzzing because they're in the fucking top 4 of Spain. But I'm not quite sure if Troyes feel the same.
Exactly, yeah. And with Strasbourg, I'm quite surprised they are, kind of venting and stuff like that, because they weren't doing particularly well before the takeover. So obviously I'm not an ultra Strasbourg fan. If I felt like those players coming into the club and it was aiding their progression in their league, I would be happy. So I'm quite surprised that they are kind of marching and protesting. But obviously I don't know the exact details. But
relegation zone now, bro.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, they were like 8th. They were doing really well, but now they're like near the relegation zone. I think their issue is kind of like our issue. Is like they've gutted out all the experienced players and stuff like that, and obviously they think that's because we've come in there, Bali and stuff. Their president's come out and said no, this is not what happened. This policy was here before, but they know their club best, and this is what we should be doing. We should be calling out these owners. Stop, as much as I hate Pochettino, it shouldn't all be on the managers. It should be on above. They're the main issue.
No, they're definitely. And just on that, I think with this management manager's appointment, they have to get it right, and they will get it right, if I'm being honest, because as you guys touched on, I think they'll start turning on the family, start turning on the owners, and they know that. So it's within their best interest to get the appointment right. And personally, I feel that Pochettino is gonna finish the season and possibly to finish his last season, and then they're probably gonna have a mutual agreement to part ways, and then they'll bring up the manager. So I don't think Pochettino's actually gonna get sacked, even though I do want to get him wanting to get sacked. I feel like they're gonna really wait to.
They're gonna wait another year.
Yeah, I definitely believe they're gonna wait another year. I don't know if you guys noticed when we lost the League Cup, when he went up to Ekbali and stuff. I felt like there was a relationship there with Ekbali. I feel like they have some kind of relationship, and I think there's a respect there. Probably not towards Todd Bowley. Probably that's why
he ignored him completely, or didn't see him, whichever one of the two it was.
No, I think he did see him. I think he did see him. That was done on purpose. That's my opinion.
If you saw him, that's even worse. If you saw him, I'm surprised Bowley hasn't called for him to get sacked. Maybe he has. I think Bowley's like, no. Which is funny because officially Bowley is our chairman, which we found out can change every 5 years. Bit odd. But yeah, on what Pai said, Strasbourg, obviously they lost to Monaco now, which that in and of itself, I feel like, I don't know the French league particularly well. I don't know the current league table either. But I feel like losing to Monaco surely can't be that bad. But they are now 1 point from relegation. Now, imagine if Strasbourg get relegated. Like, we haven't even considered this. Like, the whole model would take an even further deep dive. Like, it would almost be hilarious. Obviously, for Strasbourg, I hope they don't get relegated for that fan, for the people in the club. But for the hilariousness of how our shit our ownership is, it would be kind of funny if they got relegated, I'll be honest. But I think enough ownership, enough potential manager talk, because like we touched on, nothing will happen before the summer, almost certainly. And next year, thinks maybe not even then. So who the flip knows? But there is obviously transfer stuff that's already happening again. Now, Pice, you touched on a striker there. According to Matt Law, Chelsea have started to plan targets with Osimhen and Benjamin Sesko among the leading candidates for striker. Fabrizio Romano also speaking about Osimhen a fair bit over the last few days in relation to Chelsea. Where do you think things stand in the striker department? Like, obviously, John Obi Mikel is doing his best to act as his personal Chelsea and Victor Osimhen agent. But part of me still feels like there's certain things that are said by people like Mikel, even when Fabrizio hints at things like that Chelsea are one of the most interesting options for Osimhen. And obviously the stuff that he a few weeks ago said he kind of already knows or whatever, or there was at least rumors that he knows. Do you think there is a chance that he's already decided to come here, or do you think that's all made up speculation and nothing is decided on anything?
I think he's probably decided where he wants to play in terms of the league, but I don't think in terms of the club he's probably picked yet.
Which is so weird. Like, I know obviously for players it's big to go to the Prem, but like if he's supposedly a Chelsea fan, like imagine being a Chelsea fan, you're like, okay, but I want to play in the Prem. Do you know what I mean? Like surely you'd be like, okay, I either go to Chelsea or to PSG or to, I don't know, Real Madrid. Like just as random examples. But hey, for them it's just the league. Fair dues. Sorry, you were trying to say more.
What was I saying? I don't know.
On Osimhen, essentially.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a weird one. I want to say we'll go for him. I think we will try, but I think it will be based on player sales because I don't think we're going to get Europe. So, we're going to have to sell, unfortunately. Maatsen, Broja. We're going to sell Gallagher probably. Lewis Hall's like 30 million coming in. We will raise quite a bit of money, to be fair, from these guys. But this is really our last summer. Like, this is our last summer to kind of go all out, I think, in terms of spending. And then after that, it's like, holy shit, you better do well in the league. Otherwise, you're screwed financially. Because we're basically gutting all the academy players. We're using them as like it's like a savior token almost. It's like, oh, yes, we can fall back on that. We've done bad again. But look, at least we've got the academy to cash in on. Like, that's our last saving hope. And I think
that's falling apart the more they sell. So
yeah, and there's not many of them left. Probably Chalobah moves on.
Yeah.
This is the last summer where you can kind of have a good raising of funds to then go and spend money. So I think we probably will go for Osimhen. Sesko, I like Sesko, but he's too raw. Like, you can't have Sesko and Jackson. You just
How much
can't.
would Sesko cost? Do you know that?
He's got a £42 million release clause.
Okay, it's not expensive at least, but still more than Jackson costs. Like when you think about
it. Also with the wages and things, if we're going to go for Osimhen, we obviously need to make an allowance on our wage budget, and clearing players out will help for that. But they've got this thing of not wanting to pay signings over 150,000. Will they make an allowance for someone like Osimhen? And if not, by the way, I don't know why. Like Matt Law was saying, basically Chelsea have no plans to sell Sterling. Why? He's on 325k a week. He doesn't fit.
I was going to get to that in a second when we speak about Nico Williams, but
I don't. He doesn't. It's strange how they're so hell bent on this model. They're probably not going to give Gallagher 150,000 plus, but yet they'll keep Sterling, who's on 325,000, signed by Todd Bowley. I mean, maybe Bowley's like, no, he's not going. Maybe that's the disagreement with Igbali because he signed him. But that was for Tuchel, by the way. Tuchel's not here anymore, so. Yeah. It's reportedly anyway. God knows if that was true, whether he's his top target or what. Might have just been a board signing. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, what worries me about this is like Chelsea have started to plan targets. Well, this is my thing with the managers. You don't even know who's the manager yet, and then I think, wait, look what happened with Graham Potter. They put players on Graham Potter. They put players on Pochettino. I know for a fact Pochettino wanted more experience in this team, and they didn't get anything in January for him. He wanted height. They bought back Cassidy, right? So from Leicester, it's like the managers don't get a say in things. They just don't. I don't care if it's brief that they do and it's collaborative. It's not. This model is like, we buy you the players, you do, like, you coach them. That's the model. It's not. I refuse to believe that we'll sign someone for a manager that's like his absolute pick. I just refuse to believe it. And if it's reported, I won't believe it because it's not. It's not how we operate. It's like the sporting directors and the owners.
I think there is a chance it could end like that. Like once there is a functioning relationship between the manager, and the club. But I think initially they don't want to do that before they know whether they're going to stick with this manager long term. Like I think if they find a manager, they're like, okay, we want you to be our guy for seriously long term, and we've done a year or two. I think then it could change, but
they did that though with Graham Potter. That was
but as in that's what I'm trying to say. As in, once it's worked for 1 or 2 years already, and they've kind of had proof that it works, only then will they give them a bit more power.
That doesn't make sense though, because what?
No, it doesn't. But nothing they do make sense. So.
No, I know. Like, that doesn't make sense because, like, say, like for me, Enrique flew in from Spain and he was interviewed right for our job. I'm not saying he would have been good, but it was amazingly interesting how he was discarded pretty much after one interview. You know, he went in there and said, "Look, to make us succeed, I'm going to need 2 or 3 of these players." And they were probably like, Winstanley and Stewart and Egbali were probably like, "Nah, doesn't fit into our model. Sorry." It's so pathetic, honestly. This is so pathetic. And this is why, even if Pochettino goes, I am fucking so scared. I am shit scared of who they're going to appoint. I really am. I'm scared because only certain type of managers will want to work in this model. It's unfortunately, it's ridiculous.
But in a way, I think that's our saving grace. We almost have to hope that more managers show balls and that more managers act like Nagelsmann, because if they can't find anyone half decent that accepts them, then they might realize, oh shit, the way we want to do it, we won't get a manager. So we need to do it.
It's crazy how we could have ended up with company this season if Ange and Poch basically said no. That's what they would have done. I refuse to believe they would have went back and changed the sort of metrics of how they were going to approach. I just find it absolutely like it's ego, and it's like you think you know better, but yet what you're doing has failed and you fucked us up as a club. It's like, why are you being this egotistical? Like, why are you acting like this model is like there's no room for maneuver? Whatever they tell you, the facts are on the table. You can see everything that's played out at this football club since they've come.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Nicole says here, Sterling said he's going no way, he wants to stay in London. Well, we can go to fucking Crystal Palace, mate.
Send him to Brentford.
Yeah, Brentford, Palace, Arsenal, Spurs, West Ham, don't care. But no, let's be real here. Sterling isn't going anywhere because no one else in the world that isn't in Saudi Arabia will pay him £325,000 a week. That's why he wants to stay in London, not because of London or his family. No, because he earns 325 bags. Let's be real now. Naishi, in terms of striker, Sesko, Osimhen, obviously you can throw other names into there as well that are a bit more, up in the air. Let's confirmed, I suppose. Thanks, Fava, as well. You're welcome. I won't speak too soon. I'll give everything a bit more time. But I said everyone play Havertz at midfield. But hey, we'll see whether I get proven right about that or not. I won't judge yet because for now it's just March Verts. So let's give it a bit of time. But if he's still doing this in June, then it's a different scenario. But hey, here we are. And on Jorginho, mate, I'm still crying basic. So don't.
Thanks for 60 mil, bro. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for 60 mil. 60 mil that we bought who for? What? 18-year-olds that play for Strasbourg? Great.
Hopefully Parma. That's my copium.
Yeah. If you want to look at it that directly, sure. But you know as well as I do that the big money ain't going to Parma. But yeah, Nate, on the striker, it's Sesko. I know Sesko ain't bad, but like he's not. I don't even think he's better than Jackson right now. I'm not saying he won't be, but he isn't. He doesn't start regularly on. Maybe regularly is the wrong word, but he doesn't start every game for Leipzig. What the fuck is someone that doesn't start for Leipzig doing at Chelsea? Well, the way where Chelsea is right now, to be fair, it suits perfectly. But it shouldn't be that way. Do you know what I mean? So, nah, man. I can't even be bothered. I'd rather they don't sign a striker if they're not going to sign a proper one. I'll be honest. Like, obviously, we need to sell Broja, so we'll need to sign someone. But hey, David Datro Fofana scored a screamer for Burnley today, so big up him. Maybe we'll have to bank on him now. Who knows? But yeah, where do you stand in the striker situation, Aishi?
Yeah, I'm just praying for Osimhen, honestly. That he's the real deal. I've watched him a couple of times. He's just energetic. I feel like if he gets in one-on-one situations, he'll more than likely put it back in the net. With Sesko, I don't think he's great at all, to be honest. I seen him in that Champions League against Real Madrid. He missed a number of chances. And if he's missing those kind of chances, I don't really want him at Chelsea. And he's really raw, to be honest. You can go on YouTube, see good videos of him, but if you see him live, he misses quite. And as you touched on, he doesn't start regularly for Leipzig. So what do we expect him to be the first choice for Chelsea? It doesn't make any sense. So we should really go all out with Osimhen. And I agree with Pies. This is probably the final summer where we can spend big, because financially it's not going to be feasible in the next transfer windows as we can, because we might exceed that 105 million loss average. So if we see that, we will be accustomed to, I don't know, fines and bans and stuff like that. So I see this is the final time we can really go out for these kind of players, and we
Then
definitely.
again, I'm thinking like rather than like maybe we'd be in a better position if we just didn't sell everyone and just bought big anyway and just took the transfer ban. Maybe we'd be better off than trying to stay within these rules because we're just mudding our own squad. Like, I know some people still don't like Gallagher, but I'm like, without Gallagher, mate, if we didn't have Gallagher, I honestly think we're like 15th this season. Now, is 11th and 10th and 15th so different? Maybe not. But in the heart, very much is. We're fucking 15th. And yeah, maybe that's an exaggeration, but I just think without Gallagher, we fall apart. Who's gonna drive the team? Who's gonna lead the press? Who's gonna shout at people to run? Like no one. Who's gonna do it? Because none of the others run enough themselves. So you need fucking Gallagher for that. Like, okay, Caicedo and Enzo do that running, but anyway, I'm waffling too much. I agree. Get Osimhen, but at the same time, do I believe in that he will work? No. So I have no trust in anything or anyone. But there has also been talk that we are lining up a move for Nico Williams, according to Matt Law, who, a bit more washed than he maybe was a little while back, but still, Matt Law. Pizer, coming back to you. You touched on it earlier in terms of that Sterling doesn't look like he's moving at all. Or Mudryk, by the way. So why are we thinking about buying Nico Williams then? In general, by the way, don't have a problem with Nico Williams. 21 years old, already Spanish international, plays every game for Athletic Bilbao. Has got 6 goals and whatever, how many assists in all competitions this season. Good player. At a fairly big club that is, used to expectations and pressure. So I'd like it in general, but I don't really see where he fits in the team right now. And I'm sure you can play him on the right, I suppose, because he can play on the right as well. So you could, replace Madueke, but I don't really see the point if Sterling isn't going in this one. What do you think, Pice?
Yeah, I think this is a player that we'll try and sign. Really talented player, can play left and right, but again, doesn't really make sense because, like you said, Sterling's not leaving. Well, apparently, according to Matt Law anyway. Mudryk obviously isn't going to leave. Madueke, I don't think will leave, and I don't think he should leave. And obviously, we've even got Angelo out on loan and Amari Hutchinson. We've got wingers, Jackson as well. If there's even a scenario where we decide to, that Sesko's, we don't want him to go to another club, they'll try and sign him as well. And then you will have Sesko and Osimhen, and then Jackson can play out on the left. So, you've got too much then.
What? Did you just say Osimhen and Sesko?
Yeah, I think that could actually happen, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised.
But Pice is still hitting himself with that transfer dopamine.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised.
Hey, I wouldn't be surprised either. We do mad things off the pitch and we do terrible things on it. So why not?
Because Jackson's played out on the left, maybe they're like, versatility. We don't want Sesko going to another Prem club because we believe he's really good or whatever. Because they must believe he's really good if he's, ahead of that Gyökeres, obviously, that a lot of Chelsea fans want. Doesn't look like we're going for him, even though he scored 30 goals this season.
Yeah.
Did well in the Championship. I'd like Williams. I think he's, looks really good. But again, unless players are shifted, if you replace Sterling with him, as much as I don't like, this youth model as such, it would definitely, I think he'd do better than Sterling for us, honestly. I just do.
I agree, because he's like I touched on, he's kind of, yes, he's very young, but he's like the opposite of Mudryk. Being very young, he's already actually done quite a lot. He's played at a high level, he's played regularly, he's played a lot. He's obviously Mudryk has played for his national team as well, but not necessarily regularly. Nico Williams does that as well. He just seems much further in his development for his age than other than Palmer. Every youngster we've said, and of course Gusto, I can't let him out. All of the ones we have, Madueke seems way further behind in development. Mudryk seems way further behind in development. Even Jackson is way further behind in development. Obviously older and different position, but in terms of just comparing young players in terms of their stages of development by age. But so from that perspective, I'd like it. But he also has a 50 million euro, 42 million pounds release clause. It's only 150k a week. Pice, what I wanted to actually touch on before Naishi comes back. remember when we signed all these players like your Enzos, your Mudryk, and there was even talk about when the Mason Mount contract talks was going on, that we are doing flexible contracts or whatever terminology they used. Essentially, that they would pay a lot more when we are in the Champions League, when they do well, but their base salaries aren't very high. Now, that was always said that the base salaries of your likes of Enzo, that's why it's not particularly high at all for the type of signing that it was. But if we do play Champions League or win things, then they get very, very big bonuses and stuff. So this is why I now find the whole wage talk a little bit funny, because I'm like, so a year ago it was said we're only not paying big wages because we're not in Europe. Now they're saying, well, because we're not in the Champions League. But now they're not saying we're just not paying big wages. So which one is it? Has the structure changed? Has the plan changed? Have they just realized, okay, we're not going to be in the Champions League anytime soon? I don't know. Or have the media just waffled and what they said about last year about contracts isn't even true? I don't know. I just find it, you get my question, Pies. Like, where has this idea come from that, okay, low base salary, but highly bonus incentivized, and then it's not been a problem for these big players, so why should it be a problem for these big players? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how, like, for example, when you qualify the Champions League, I know you get like 50 million. I don't know how much it is for Europa League, but I'm guessing, a lot of that probably doesn't actually go on transfers. It probably goes on like club spend. So
you get 15 million, not 50.
Yeah, I mean, and this is what I don't get. It's like, right, so Conference League is our, does that count as Europe? Or this is what I hate as well. Is I guess it does. Nothing's been specified in terms of like, okay, Pochettino at least has to get this to have a chance of staying. He has to get Europe. Okay, well, what Europe? You know what I mean?
Maybe they don't even know about Conference League.
Oh, mate, honestly, Conference League is so fucking useless. Like,
I think it's more fun than Champions League nowadays. I watch a conference of like where they skip it, like change between all the games of Europa League and Conference League.
I cannot be asked.
It was way more fun than all the Champions League games.
I can't be asked for Osimhen to go to Andorra and break his leg on a bad pitch. Like, I just cannot be asked for it personally.
So don't worry, bro. He'll come here and break his leg at Cobham. It doesn't make a fucking difference where he breaks his leg.
But you just know, like, dodgy pitch. Maybe we have a good start to the season. Play a group stage game in like Andorra or Montenegro, and someone breaks a leg. It's like it's one of those where I'd rather be out of Europe again personally. Just play one game a week.
But how much did that help us this season?
Well, yeah, I mean Pochettino is just fucking useless, isn't he? Obviously, but yeah, I mean, like the thing is like Conference League, like that probably gets you like absolutely nothing financially. Like I'm pretty sure you get like 2 million or something for winning it. Like what the like it's ridiculous. It's
like obviously the biggest money is always the qualification money, and then you get something per stage. But
that's got to be what? How much you reckon? Like if we finished 8th and we got Conference League, how much do we get for that? What, 5-10 million? It can't be that. It can't be more than that. Can't be. It's a third tier competition. It's crazy.
I'm just googling it, seeing if I can find something.
So I don't know when they, all the briefs come out when they say he has to minimum get Europe. I mean, as if Conference League should even count in that. Like, surely Europa League is the minimum because Europa League's not a bad competition.
I'll bring it up now. You will be laughing.
Yeah.
So according to goal.com, if you qualify for the first qualifying round, that's 150k. Second round of qualifying,
€5 million for winning it.
Literally, if you qualify for the group stages, it's €3 million, and that's essentially what the club mean when they say you need to get Europe. You need to get.
That's like £1.5 million. These briefs have to be bullshit.
A bit more, around £2 million, they say. But even still, it's fuck all.
That's like 2 months of Sterling's wages.
Literally, and you get. Every win in a group stage, you get €500,000. So, did a conference and Europa League group stages, by the way, also change? Or is it just Champions League? I don't even know. But yeah, that should still be €3 million extra because we should win every game in the group stage. But so it does add up, but it's still going to be below 20 million. So or maybe even below 15 million. So what do you want with that? Like just don't sign one random kid. That's fine. Like then you don't need Conference League. Like it's a pretty simple. Naishi, I want to bring you back onto discussing Nico Williams specifically. Aside from the fact that without selling at least one of our wingers, I don't really see the point. A player that you've know anything about, seen a little bit of? Would you be interested?
I'm definitely a fan of this. He's really talented. I've watched him a number of games. He plays for Spain as well, so the national team. Left foot, right foot, pace, strength. Honest, if we get this guy, I'm going to be definitely excited. And if it means having Sterling, Modric, and so on, then let it be, because I definitely think we can't miss this opportunity. He's definitely one for the future, and not even the future really. As you touched on, he's probably had a lot of he's got a lot of experience for his age, and he's had a number of games under his belt, so he won't be like in the same situation as probably Modric. And me personally, I know I'm not a fan of Sterling either, but I'll be more inclined to maybe put Modric on loan, but I know he's cost us 60 odd million, but I think that's still a possibility that we can maybe put Modric on loan and then bring
Chelsea aren't sending him on loan. No chance.
Yeah.
It would, especially for the wages. Like, does Modric, like, obviously Sterling has played a lot more and he has more goals and assists than Modric does, and Sterling is usually the guy that turns up in dangerous situations. Often we mess up the last pass or it's offside or something like that. But when you compare their wages, does Sterling do 3 times as much for Chelsea as Modric does? Nope. No. So from that perspective, I'm like, it's purely because of how much he earns for how little he does. It's, in my opinion, Sterling that needs to go. Now, if Sterling took a wage cut, which obviously won't happen, I'm just theorizing. But if Sterling only earned 100k, then we'd be in a very different discussion. But because he earns 325 bags a week, you know, and we're talking about, we need to make money available so we can sign players. Like, I know someone in chat said earlier, it's not as simple as you get Sterling's wages off the books and you give them to Osimhen. That's not quite how it works. No, obviously not. But it still opens up a certain amount of your budget, because they're not thinking of, okay, we're paying Sterling 325k a week. They're adding it up to a month, and they're adding that up to 3 months and to 4 months and to 6 months and to years, how much they're paying him each year. And that is, in a way, made available within the budget if he did leave. So, yeah. But any which way. Let's talk about Newcastle a bit. Before that, I quickly want to talk about Lewis Hall, because that has been a bit of a messy conversation. There was reports, Lewis Hall is nowhere near, meeting clauses to actually become permanent transfer. And then Eddie Howe said, I can't confirm Lewis Hall's permanent move is close to being triggered. He will stay here for many more years to come. Now, obviously make of the source what you will, but Felix Johnson, he's been on the channel before, I'm sure most of you guys know him. He has said that, as he has already said a million times, which I actually had never seen before, but fair enough, apparently he said a million times, Lewis Hall will be staying at Newcastle. The only clause in his loan move is that Newcastle finish above 15th in the Premier League, and then the obligation to move to sign him comes into place. And then they have to sign him for 30 million, which obviously will be some of the money coming back in. Now, someone earlier said 150k. I think you might have looked at his brother. I just think it's very unlikely that Nico Williams earned anywhere near that much money. But also, you need to always be a bit careful. In Spain, salaries are before tax. The ones that you see. Like, that's why I'm sure a lot of you heard about the Isco move a couple of years ago when he was supposed to go to Union Berlin. The reason why that collapsed is because he realized at the end that what he's is it the other way around? Maybe it's the other way around and it's in German. Maybe I'm waffling. But anyway, his move to Union Berlin, he thought the money they were telling him about was the money after tax, but actually the money that they told him he was going to earn was the money before tax. And then he realized, oh shit, I'm actually only earning half of what I thought I was going to earn. And then the move didn't, kind of fell apart because he's like, what the fuck? So yeah, but by that, what I've just explained, that makes it sound like it's the other way in Spain. So maybe I'm waffling. But I still doubt that a 21-year-old Nico Williams is on 200k a week at Athletic Bilbao. If Spanish clubs could afford things like that, I don't think Spanish clubs would be in the situations they're in. But yeah, Pice, on Lewis Hall, does this, I mean, as much as it's a weird clause, would this whole 15th be at least a little bit of an explanation why there's been no word? Because it can't be about appearances, but they are so adamant that he will stay. So clearly it's not an appearance clause. So something like this does make a bit more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's right as well, because the Newcastle Telegraph reported the same thing. And I think when Eddie Howe was like, it's close, I'm guessing that probably means that they won't, well, when it's mathematically like impossible. They can finish
For them to
15th
drop
or lower.
lower,
Yeah,
yeah.
then there'd probably be a tweet or whatever from Fabrizio or whatever. But what a weird clause though. You might as well just paid it, in the summer. I don't know whether
Just make it a normal obligation. I mean, I guess they probably
Yeah.
just wanted to be sure, just in case they get like relegated or whatever, that they don't have to buy a player for 30 million. Obviously, they were, I'm sure, not expecting to get relegated, hence why everybody saw it as a proper obligation to buy.
Mm.
But yeah, that's the only logical
weird.
explanation I can think of. But yeah, it's a weird one. But let's talk about tomorrow. Sorry, Pice, you were trying to say something else?
I said it's sad because I really rate him.
Yeah, same.
Right,
but unfortunately, our manager didn't, so that's sad. But yeah, we're taking on Newcastle tomorrow. They are missing a few players as well. Nick Pope is out, Trippier is out, Lewis Hall is apparently also injured, not that he would play anyway. They've got a fair few injuries, but not like us. So let's talk about the team. I think what we will put on screen is what we think is the predicted 11, the team that we think Pochettino will pick. And then alongside that, we will explain if we would like to play different players in positions than we think Poch will. And I think we need to start in goal, of course. Neji, it was Sanchez against Leeds in the FA Cup. It was Petrovic again in the Premier League against Brentford. So do you expect it to be Petrovic again? Or do you think all of a sudden now it will be Sanchez?
No, I feel well, first of all, in my opinion, I think it should be Petrovic, and I think it will. I feel like Pochettino probably trusts him more than Sanchez. And Sanchez, if I'm honest, since Petrovic has kind of showed his attributes, it's almost made Sanchez look worse. Sanchez.
That one game against Leeds, Sanchez already showed everything you needed to know why Petrovic is the better goalie to put in goal.
That was a horrible showing from Sanchez, and I actually thought Sanchez was decent before Petrovic came in. So, yeah. I really hope Pochettino with Petrovic and our defensive record probably. I don't know the statistics. Maybe Pies will probably touch on that. But I think he's probably had more clean sheet than Sanchez.
Well, I don't know necessarily the stat comparison, but just quickly to what Vic said here, the tax rate in Spain is 24%. Now, I'm sure you did a Google of that. I assume you don't just know that off by heart, but if you know tax rates, there's usually like a certain amount of money that you earn is within that tax bracket. The next money is within that tax bracket. Like it's not all within 1%, right? So I also can't imagine that someone earning that much money only has to pay 24% tax in a country like Spain. Very much doubt that, but I could be wrong. Pice though. Do you also think Poch will go with Petrovic again after he did at Brentford? The fact that he did at Brentford makes me think he will. But
yeah,
do you disagree?
Yeah, I think Petrovic is the number one now. I think that game was probably the decider. I think who was going to be the number one. But yeah, funny how things work. You got to say another fail really from the ownership because you pay Sanchez what was it, 30 million or something like that. Petrovic I think it was like 15s, and the cheaper guy ends up being the number one within a few months. It's kind of embarrassing, really. But there we go.
Sorry. Did you say Sanchez cost 30 million?
Something like that, wasn't it?
29 million to be put. Yeah.
Mate, I completely forgot about this and ignored it from my memory. Wait.
Sure, I think it was something like that.
Oh, it should be right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just want to. Before I lose my shit completely, I want to be sure that this is true. Yeah, 28.7 million euros. So like 25 million pounds.
Yeah.
But even still, according to Transfer Market, so who knows how accurate that is. But fucking hell, man. Fucking hell. What a joke. What a joke. Anyway, but yeah, Petrovic in goal. I think we're all in agreement. Poch will pick him. And I think we all agree that he should be picked. Centre-backs. Pice, I'll stick with you. Who do you reckon the centre-backs will be? Who do you reckon the centre-backs should be?
Is Silva back? I'm not sure. Is he back?
I think so. He's not on the injury report.
Yeah, I think Silva and Disassi, to be fair, will be the
presumably. I mean, obviously, Chalobah has started the last two games. So
yeah, it could be Chalobah, but I think probably if Silva's still,
I mean, Chalobah could also end up playing right back or Disassi. Let's not.
Oh God, yeah, I've just thought of that. Disassi plays right back, doesn't he? Sometimes. Oh no.
Yeah, but so did Chalobah before he got injured. So I'm not sure which one is more like. I think Chalobah is more likely between the two purely because Poch actually wants Disasi as a centre back and doesn't want Chalobah. So that's my only logic. But
we need to hope that Gusto plays right back and Cucurella's fit, because Gordon against Chalobah or Disasi on the side is not going to be fun. Tell you that.
Yep. Neji, centre backs. Do you agree these two that it will be those two? That it should be those two?
I don't think there's any other alternative. I think that it should be this too, unless Pochettino on the injury list as well.
No, he's apparently he is still on the injury list to join partial team training now or soon. So he should be back soon, but not yet.
Okay, so
you're essentially the only other one you've got is Chalobah or Gilchrist in theory.
Yeah, so I would go along with Pies with that Thiago and Disasi. I think that's the only real option, and that's the most. That's the partnership that really makes sense, really.
There you go. I mean, I'll stick with you, Neshi. Left back, right back. We talked about it there. Marc Cucurella is back. Now, he was taken off the injury list, I think, ahead of Brentford. And he has been training. So he has been training for a week and a bit now with the team in full training, seemingly. But when did he get injured? Was it in January? Was it in December still? Like somewhere around the turn of the year, I feel like he got injured.
Yeah.
And he had surgery. After 3 months out-ish? 2.5, 3 months out? And having a surgery, it just sounds like... Now, part of me is like, Pies, I hope he's fit enough to start. But at the same time, I'm like, if he does start, I'm not going to assume he's fit enough. If he does start, I'm going to assume we rushed him back like we did with Chilwell, like we did with... who's the other one? Lavia, like we did with Caicedo earlier in the season, like we did with Nkunku a few times, like we did with so many players. I think if Cucurella starts, this is not a good sign, if that makes sense. But I just wonder whether Poch will feel pressured into it. I don't think he will, though. I don't think he will. If I just tell you my left back and right back now that I think Poch will play. Now, last game against Leeds, I say last game that we had this debate whether who plays the left back situation, where against Leeds, like I say, when Ben Chilwell wasn't fit after the cup final, Gusto remained at right back and Alfie Gilchrist played left back. Didn't particularly work out well. Gilchrist was then moved around multiple times throughout the game, played at right back, then he was subbed off, then Chalobah played right back. So because of that, I think what Poch will do tomorrow, and you guys can obviously give your own input after that, what you think it will be. I think Chalobah will be right back and Malo Gusto will be the left back. I just think that's a bit more likely than playing Gilchrist again at left back. I think, I could be wrong, but I think so. Maybe Chalobah and Disasi switch, but I think this way around, it is more likely. Neshi, what do you think Poch will play as left back and right back? And what do you think about the Cucurella situation? Like, do you think he should play? Are you like me that if he does play, you're like, well, we're now rushing him back? Or do you think there is a chance that all of a sudden... But how can you be out for 3 months, train for a week without playing and be fit to start? Like, that's not a thing. Players aren't out for 3 months, train a week, and are fit to start. That never happens, right?
Yeah, there's no chance he's starting. There's no chance in our...
Maybe he comes off the bench. Hopefully he comes off the bench, but...
Yeah, if I think it's dependent on the game. If it's a game where we're chasing and we're gonna throw everything at it, he probably will put Cucurella on for the last 10-15 minutes. But if it's a game where we're winning and we're cruising, which is very unlikely, I think he will keep Gusto on the left back and Chalobah on the right. Yeah, I think especially with the Leeds game, I think before the Leeds game we would have went Gilchrist left back, Gusto right back. But because after that, because Gilchrist did seem to struggle on that left side, so I think he's going to go with Gusto left back and Chalobah right back, which does make sense with the circumstances we're in. And yeah.
I agree. Now, could you argue to just leave Gusto? Like, because I made this argument because a lot of people obviously lost their minds when we saw that Gusto was at right back, Gilchrist was at left back in that game against Leeds. My point was, while I get the frustration that because Gilchrist had never played left back, but I'm like, at least if you do that, only one player's out of position. If you do it like this or playing Gilchrist at right back, 2 players out of position. So it's like, is that better? Is that worse? There is also very much a case to be made for, I forget his name, but the under-21s left back. like he plays in the same team as Gilchrist, and in the under-21s, Gilchrist would never be played at left back. The left back would be played at left back. So, and apparently he wasn't in the under-20s or under-21s, whatever team played this week, squad, and trained with the first team since 2 weeks or whatever. So maybe there's a small chance he plays, but I just think this is more likely. Pice, what do you think left back and right back will be?
Predictors?
Yeah. And then obviously tell me what you think as well, or what you would do.
I think it'll be Cucurella and Gusto, I think.
Do you reckon actually he plays Cucurella? Have you ever heard of a player being out for 3 months and starting his first game back? I've never heard of that.
Well, what makes me think he will is because he was like, it was like, oh, we need to make a little check on Cucurella to see if he can play. But
it's true.
I just think, like, with the position we're in as well, I don't, he's probably still fighting for his job. I don't think he goes with like a guilt.
But if Cucurella gets injured as well, then he's going to be without a left back for months.
Oh yeah, I mean we will.
So
be
that's arguably, surely that's worse than one game.
We will be rushing him back no matter what. But
yeah,
I think if I predicted, I think he'll put Cucurella in.
Okay.
What I would do, I would play. I have to have Gusto at right back. I just do. I can't have anyone else defending Gordon. Okay. Left back, I mean, I don't actually know. There's not really anyone. I mean, maybe we even go like a 3 at the back or something.
We did play a back 3 in the last game, to be fair.
Yeah,
now, it was because Brentford play a back 3, but do Newcastle play a back 3? Sometimes.
Maybe you put, a Mudryk at wing back or something. Maybe you do that. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'd put Mudryk left wing back, actually. I'd play a back 3. Silva, Disasi, Chalobah, Gusto right wing back, Mudryk left wing back. Yeah.
I mean, we could do that. 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 now?
3-5-2.
Last game was 3-5-2, but
yeah, 3-5-2 probably.
Fuck's sake, I hate 3-5-2.
Or
I hate 3 at the back anyway, but 3-5-2 I hate even more.
No, if you play a 3-4-3, you can have both wingers track back at the same time. So actually, I think I'd do that, actually, left wing. Because you have a left winger and then left wing back. They can both sort of go forward and track back together. But, I don't expect great coaching from Pochettino. So no. I don't know if that would actually happen or it would be a disaster.
What is this even? I mean, this is probably more closely related to the reality. A 5-2-2-1 with our manager. But yeah, I mean, Naishi, thoughts? Obviously, because obviously I didn't watch the last game as the way I usually do. I kind of forgot that we played a back 3 in the last game. Do you think there's a chance he does that again, Naishi?
I think there's a chance he does do that, but I wouldn't want that to happen personally. But I do believe there's a chance of that happening. And I think he'll possibly if he is going to play 3 at the back, he's going to shift Disasi to the right and then maybe sacrifice Chalobah on the left.
Who's going to place the third centre back then?
So Thiago, I think Thiago will be in the centre.
Yeah, but we already have 3. So who plays on the left if Disasi's on the right?
So in terms of left wing back and right wing back?
No, because you said you think he will shift Chalobah, but we only have these 3.
Yeah, no, I mean he'll just Disasi and Chalobah just swapping around really.
Yeah. That may well be the case. Swap them like this somehow. No, apparently not. Brilliant. So apparently we can't do that. Yeah, I mean, I'm almost tempted to first of all to make it a bit more interesting, but also just to.
We've got 2 Disasi.
I'm so confused. But why is the one in the middle of the first one, man? Anyway, because we did it in the last game, I wouldn't be like totally shocked if he did do that. So just to make it a bit interesting, I'm gonna go with that. Okay, so you're essentially, I'm asking you, Naishi, to pick within this formation. I think then we all agree Gusto is right wing back. Pice, you said Mudryk, but let's act predicted 11. Don't you think he would put Sterling there? But then who would he put in up front? But that's why I think it's more likely to be a 5-3-2, if you will, because I just think if he's not going to play Mudryk and Sterling in a 3-4-3, is he? Like, he's not going to do that.
Why not? I would.
Yeah, because it's Poch and he just won't do that.
I don't know. I think I would personally. Not Sterling, but yeah, I would. Maybe Jackson. Jackson tracks back well.
But then who plays striker?
Yeah.
Good point.
Because we don't have any of those either.
Yeah. I don't know. The back three's. I don't know. Yeah, the back three probably won't happen, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've just seen Connor in the chat. Hello, Connor. He first said, I think they forced Cuckoo straight back in too. Then he says, essentially a formation for a 3-5-2 or 3-4-3. But Connor, do you think it will be a 3-back or do you think it will be a 4-back? Because in what you've now written up, you didn't put Cucurella. So I don't know, man. If we play this, Cucurella isn't going to play left wing back. I don't think that happened. But
Mudueke might be ability on that side, on that left wing back.
who?
Mudueke, Noni.
Yeah, I mean Connor's comment there in terms of Gusto left wing back, Madueke right wing back. I think Madueke is more suited to playing right wing back than either Mudryk or Sterling are to play left wing back. I'll be honest, but the way if Mudryk does start, the way he stands around at left wing is essentially like a left wing back anyway. So you might as well let him do that.
Mudryk pretty much plays left mid anyway whenever he does play because he doesn't exactly go forward. Like it's
true.
That's why I think the left wing back's not really. Maybe it's more of a 3-5-2 and it's a left mid. I don't know. Like, just don't have him as forward as much. This is one thing about Poch. Sometimes there's rumours he doesn't play in defensively. I think Mudryk's always really good defensively.
I agree. I actually agree on that.
Yeah, I agree. But he just it's more like he runs after players. Like when he can just follow a ball, he will close it down. But he doesn't know, like you look at the corner we conceded in that one game. Obviously, a corner is different to normal tracking back and defending. But he just doesn't know, like he just doesn't know where to go. That's his only issue. I'm being a bit annoying now, and I do apologize. But the more we've talked about it, the more I've actually want to change it around back to a back four again. Because then, what I've after then thought about, if we play whatever, like if it's a 3-4-3, I guess, right? Or a 5-2-2-1. I guess you only need two central midfielders, but we don't know if Gallagher is fit. So, like, do you know what I mean? So, what do we fucking do in midfield then? If Gallagher ain't there either, I guess in this formation it would be possible, but in the other one, not sure.
I don't think Gallagher will play. I think illness and he hasn't trained much, so
yeah. My days. You know what? I don't even know.
I think we should just go with what we want because predicted is really hard for this game. It's too much.
Okay. You know what? You make a good point. My apologies. Could have thought of that earlier, couldn't I? But we change it on the fly. But what formation would you want, Pies?
I want the three at the back because I don't want Disasi or Chalobah playing right back. So,
Naishi, would you want the three at the back or would you not?
I would want a 4 at the back.
And I don't fucking know which one I want.
Well, let's go with Pies 3 at the back. Just 4.
Let's go with it. And Pies in your team with 3 midfielders or with 2 midfielders?
We're acting like we got fucking Centurions team on here. We don't know who to choose. It's mad. We're 11. Just choose people. It doesn't matter. Literally.
Yeah, I guess, we don't have 3 midfielders if we're assuming Gallagher can't play, so we're going to have to do this one. So what? Are we going to put Mudryk here? And then we're going to play Enzo and Caicedo here. Wait, which one is the first one? No. And then Caicedo plays here. And then what? Sterling, Jackson, and Palmer? Or like, what do you reckon? Or what would you do in the front 3 then, Pies?
You know what? Because I think Botman's fit right for them. I think because Newcastle have quite a tall, strong defence. I would actually maybe play a false 9, maybe put Palmer there. I know it hasn't worked out too much, but it might, like the rotations might work quite well. So I might do Palmer, put Jackson on the left, and Madueke on the right for me personally.
Naishi, thoughts?
I don't really like Palmer in that false nine. He's really good in terms of closing down and stuff like that, but I really think that position takes away a lot from his game. But so I would go with Palmer on the right, Jackson in the middle, and then Sterling on the left.
Why has it changed all the positions again, man? But yeah.
Yeah, it's
This is where you have to decide.
Yeah, literally. It's like you do it. Mudrik, put him over there. And then I need to change him in the middle again, flip's sake. Can you remind me of that one more time, Naishi? My apologies.
Yeah, no, I'll personally go with Palmer on the right, Jackson in the middle, and then Noni on the left or Sterling. So it's a toss of a coin between the two, but I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen.
I think if I'm picking this formation, which now I understand it, but like especially when we have Chilwell, I'd accept this. But if we're playing like Mudrik or Sterling or someone like that at left wing back, it's just I don't know, man. We might like how different is it really to just playing one of the centre backs at right back? Like how different is that really in the grand scheme of things? Maybe a bit, but I don't know. I would though agree if we picking this, then I would agree with the front three of Naishi. To be honest, first of all, Madueke recently I haven't really liked him, I'll be honest. But then again, I just don't want to play Sterling, but it's just I don't know. I'm not particularly happy with this, but there wasn't really anything to make it work properly, unfortunately, with the amount of injuries that we have. So what can you really do? I think, ladies and gentlemen, it's about time we come to a score prediction and finish it off there because my boys, this is driving me. Just trying to make this team annoys. I'm already annoyed for tomorrow. Because I'm like, the lack of players available, even the players that are available, they're all a bit terrible or tired. It's pissing me off. Naishi, what do you reckon? Do we get something out of this tomorrow? And by something, I don't mean a draw.
This is my heart to say this, so I'm going to say 2-1 to Chelsea.
I'll take it. Pice, do you think we'll get a win?
I do think we'll win. I'll go 2-1 as well, but my head says 1-1 slugfest. 1-1.
Yeah.
But
I, in a way, also think 1-1 is the most likely, I'll be honest. But
Yeah.
I'm going to try to be optimistic and say 1-0 Chelsea.
No.
Try to be optimistic. I mean, Billy here saying, he hasn't spelt it right, but Kazadai will start. I'm calling it. I doubt it. I think he's come on once, didn't he? What game was that?
To be honest.
It was. I think it was this.
Was it the game before the cup final? Because obviously in the cup final he was cup tied, so he couldn't play. Against Leeds he was cup tied, so he couldn't play.
It was a City game.
Against City. Away against City.
Yeah.
So yeah, and since then he hasn't even come off the bench. So very much doubt he will start. First, like if he at least came off the bench against Brentford, but he didn't even use him. Now, obviously, it was partly because of the result. I'm aware of that. But even still, why should the result be so different tomorrow that Kazanai will all of a sudden get a chance? I agree with you, Billy. I think he should be doing it, but he won't be doing it.
Yeah, Enzo and Caicedo, I know they've had a break, but they've played so many games. And Pochettino said...
also almost always the full 90.
Yeah, Pochettino said, another stupid comment from me was like, oh, we don't have anyone else. Like, bro... You have academy players and you have Casadei. What are you on about? We don't ever want anyone else in midfield. We can't freshen things up. Yeah, you can. You're just choosing not to. Like, I'm not a youth enthusiast, but I'm sure there's a midfielder or two that could do.
I think he probably would have wanted to do that against Leeds, play Casadei, but obviously he couldn't because in that game he was then cup tied.
But the fact he was like, "There's no one," just goes to show that there's and there's probably some sort of disconnect there.
And you know what? He was also given the big one on Thursday in the press conference or Friday, whenever it was. Basically about how 9 or 11 first team players, academy players have trained with the first team this week now. And then he said, yeah, we know the academy really well now because they've trained with us all season pretty much because we've had so many injuries. I'm like, so you know them really well and you're not playing any of them. Fucking brilliant.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what a twat. I hate the man. But yeah, Pratt, where's Lavia? Well, injured. God knows when we'll ever see him again. Maybe never. And Ugo Chukwu, all the same. I mean, you never know at Chelsea. A simple, small hamstring injury kept Chalobah out for 8 months. So, you might look into the light a bit wrong, and you might be injured for a year, Chelsea. Could happen. So, yeah, you never know. I think, ladies and gentlemen, it's about time we wrap this one up. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have tuned in, thank you very, very much. Subscribe if you haven't done that just yet. Hit that like button on your way out. That would be massively appreciated. Please do, of course, check out Pice's website, londonsfirst.com, as well as his Twitter. Links to both of them are down in the description. And please do also check out Naishi's Twitter, which is also linked down in the description. Even though Naishi isn't necessarily the most active, maybe we'll get him to be a little bit more active as time goes on. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Upwards and onwards. Let's see how tomorrow goes. And we'll see you next time.